I'm going to try to call the meeting to order in the next 30 seconds. Hi. Okay, so we're going to start our meeting just like the summer has felt so far, a little hectic and crazy and 2 minutes behind. But it is June 25th, and I am calling our work session to order. Reagan Parsons, I'm going to go with first name since we're work session.
Okay.
What do you have for us?
Not a thing. No, I'll save you your 2 minutes and get you caught back up. I think your agenda is pretty straightforward. 2 architectural reviews that were carried over from the business meeting. And then we'll talk a little bit about the Arts Council lease. Chris Dunn and Ray Owen are here to discuss that with the council. And as I stated in the packet memo, just looking for some general direction on some of the larger items within that lease. And then we can work it out between the attorneys and bring it back to you in the coming month or months once it is finalized. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to action items. AR-01-24, Phoenix Village multifamily apartment buildings, which was continued at our last meeting.
Yes, Mayor, the applicants have not been able to resolve both of the issues. One was building articulation and the other was the garage bays facing a public street. And so they've been working with staff, and both planning director and applicants have agreed to mutually to a continuance. So we request from the town council a continuance to the July 9th regular business meeting.
Okay. Were there 2 items or just the one that's being continued?
The first item, AR-01-24, there were 2 items they needed to resolve: the building articulation and the garages facing the street. Those 2 items on that file are unresolved, but then we'll move into 05-24. That was the next one that is different. We're ready to move forward on the next one.
But Phoenix had 2 different ones, though. Like,
Yeah, so the Shaw Avenue office and storage building is also theirs. Is that right? No. The second one
Phoenix
for
had
Phoenix is still on the agenda.
was articulation. There was a building up into the campus. Was that the one with articulation? And then the one closer to the road was.
And then there was also a
Closer to
war,
the road.
Yes, the maintenance building.
Shed, that was approved. That
that
was
was
not
approved,
continued.
yeah, right.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks.
The other one is multiple multifamily structures. The remaining issue was not the main big structure. It was actually the 3 multifamily structures, 6 units each, that front on Main Street, M-A-I-N-E for the record, not Maine, the actual state of Main Street. And that is the one that there were the 2 unresolved issues on those 3 structures was the articulation and the garage facing. And that was what it was continued for. But in working through those issues, the applicants still need a little more time.
Okay, perfect. So we will see them again at July's meeting.
Yeah. I would ask the town council to go ahead and make a motion to continue that to July, because it has been continued formally to this meeting at this point.
Okay.
Motion that we continue AR 0124 until the July general session, which is July, what's the date? 9th.
Is there a second?
I second that.
All in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so then moving on to 280 Shaw Avenue, office and storage building.
The 280 Shaw Avenue, the issue remaining was that the building, the side of the building is facing directly onto Shaw, and that's abnormal. But in this case, the building code does not allow any openings in it, so therefore they can't have their door facing directly onto Shaw because the door would actually open into the right-of-way. And so, because they need to move the building based on the variance, they need to put the building right on the property line. So that side of the building can't have any openings, but it was all brick. And so the suggestion was made by town council at the last meeting to bring in something that had the appearance of windows, at least using a herringbone pattern in the brick. And so they have resubmitted, and I do have an image here. And there it is. It's coming right. It's on Gerald's computer, so it should be here. 3, 2, 1.
Just like magic.
And so that is there is a false gable vent up at the top to give the peak of the roof a little bit more visual interest. And then there are the 2 herringbone windows consistent with the recommendation made by town council.
Is the applicant here? No.
I don't see the applicant here, no, unless this person is.
No.
No, that's not the applicant. That's Brandon.
Fine, Mr. Goodman.
No, it's okay, because I think Mr. Goodman actually had recommendations on these windows or potentially improving, but the applicant's not here. So maybe it could be a suggestion that staff could take back to the applicant.
I think they did a phenomenal job with what they did do. I was just recommending as maybe a soldier course across the top and a roll lock on the bottom would give it the appearance more of blocking in a window than just the herringbone. But I'm absolutely thrilled with what they did here, so.
It does look better.
A lot better.
I would, and staff would therefore recommend approval pursuant to maybe in the motion something AR 0524 as modified by the applicant for the June 25th work session.
Can we make the recommendation with the suggestion as well?
Suggestion of,
With the suggestion of adding
Brandon just made.
whatever he just said. I don't know the architectural terms.
Yeah, Brandon, could you repeat
rattle
that
that off again,
again?
I'll write it down.
Course, across the top,
Across the top,
roll lock across the bottom.
soldier course across the top, roll lock across the bottom.
So are those
Agreed.
binding specifications?
I don't think so. It's just a recommendation. I think they met the intent with this, but it would just be a recommendation of a nuance.
I mean, unfortunately, they're working with a piece of property that's really difficult.
Yeah.
And I think that they have at least, it looks better than it did before. Does council feel like this is okay or that it needs to be changed again?
I agree, they made it look a lot better than it did before. I would pass along suggestions. I mean, I'm gonna let you make that motion because that's a language I don't speak, whatever you just said. But I think it looks better, and if what Brandon mentioned is, not that costly, hopefully they'll honor it and
It's not
do it.
costly. It's not a lot of cost, but let me get to the motion.
If indeed, if it's not costly, then Brandon, let's go with your suggestion with that motion.
It is a suggestion, strong suggestion.
I move to approve AR 0524 with the following suggestion, and that is to add a soldier course across the top of the herringbone brick designs on the street-facing side and a roll lock underneath the herringbone on the street-facing side.
And those are changes to the character, not the character, but the images they submitted on June 25th, the updated images. Is that correct, BJ?
My understanding right now is that you're approving it as submitted with a suggestion, approving it as submitted for the June 25th meeting with a suggestion that they add a soldier course across the top of the herringbone brick pattern, and this is a standard thing on the top of windows, and then a roll lock across the bottom of the same herringbone brick window pattern.
Correct.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
All right, all in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, seeing none, motion carries. Council updates and discussion. The Arts Council lease at Campbell House. Do you all have a presentation for us, or are we having manager?
If I could, I'd like to go ahead and invite Chris and Ray up just so that everybody can hear and
Yep.
Beth has it for the record. And Chris, did you bring any kind of presentation or anything? I didn't think. Okay.
So yeah, I think three of us at least were here for a presentation last year on potential changes. That was in. Oh, perfect.
Yeah, I'll simply open and then I'll defer to Chris to add what he would like to add. What's before you and what we're asking council to consider in the coming months is a new lease with the Moore County Arts Council. They've had a lease for a number of years, predates my existence here in 2004, that has been renewed on a couple of occasions. We're a little bit overdue for a renewal now, but the timing is really good because they did come before the council last year with some architectural concepts and for an addition to the Campbell House to the rear corner, so it is not going to mess with the front facade or anything from a historical standpoint. And with a significant addition, and I think I quoted a figure of $3 million plus minus. Chris might have a better number on that now. I know he's in the process of pricing some things. But a similar type of scenario played out a number of years ago with the Boys and Girls Club when they added the teen center to the to the recreation center, or the gyms essentially on the end of that building. And the town council at that time had entered into a longer-term agreement with the Boys and Girls Club. It talked about the ability for the Boys and Girls Club to have a first right of refusal in the event that the town council were to ever decide to dispose of that building, which is maybe more likely than what any town council would do with a Campbell House, but still it's something that should be integrated into these types of deals when you start talking about multiple decades. I think even the agenda mentions a staff recommendation of 30 years. I want to be clear, that 30 years is just a number that Chris and I have been working back and forth with. I think he'd tell you they'd be happy to do 99 or 9,900. He's in a position, obviously, where he has to go raise funds for an addition. It's hard to go to donors and say, we might be out of this building in 5 years, but please write us a big check. So I understand where they're coming from on their end. From our end, obviously, that is outside of the water plant, our highest valued structure that the town owns. Clearly, it does not set up in such a way that if we were to kick them all out tomorrow, it would lend itself to a lot of great public office space or anything of that nature. It's a big old manor house. So the relationship, again, that far predates me, of the Arts Council being in that facility makes an awful lot of sense. So again, we've kicked around 30 years. I'd be perfectly comfortable recommending 30 years. I've had some initial conversations with Mac, because anytime you go beyond 10 years, it's a slightly different process under general statute. And we're prepared to follow that process, whether you say 15, 20, 30, or 50. But again, the 30 years is not hard and fast. It's kind of where we've been back and forth, and Chris might have an argument for you to consider something longer than that. Within anything of that length, there's always the option also of talking about 15 years with a 15-year renewal, or some review date that allows both sides to sit back and say, has something significantly changed? So some of the terms of the contract that we're looking for general direction on today, because again, we're not asking you to adopt something this afternoon, but we are looking to be able to bring you a draft document that's as close to final as possible when we bring it to you. So that term, be it 20, 30, 50, 99, we'd like to have some just general comfort level from the council of where they'd like to see that land. In addition, the current contract, as many of our contracts with nonprofit agencies do, has kind of a maintenance replacement threshold, where if it's something minor as a result of just happening to inhabit the structure, it generally falls back on the tenant. If it's something much larger, big HVAC unit, something of that nature, oftentimes it's the town's responsibility. That limit right now in the lease with the Arts Council is $100. Obviously, $100 20 years ago bought a whole lot more than $100 does today. So there isn't a whole lot that Chris and his group can break that they're going to be responsible for, because you can't get much for $100. We floated $250 initially. There is the other element of this is discussion of, once they are able to do their expansion, create a foundation that I think Chris will probably address a little bit, that number could grow significantly. And in particular, part of the reason for the low numbers, and we did the same thing with the Boys and Girls Club for years, is that, of course, we have Parks and Rec offices in the second floor. So I think the concept behind the original approach was, let's set a number, recognize that we both inhabit the space. That way there isn't a bunch of finger pointing of, no, you broke X, you broke Y. Let's set a number and move forward, because it remains property and responsibility of the town as an overall structure. So again, if 250 seems too low and you want to talk about 1,000, or if you're happy at 100, whatever, just as soon hammer some of that out today. And I understand that's one element of a larger lease that you might want to move depending on how something else reads too. So again, maintenance, long-term, or the term of the contract itself. The one thing we do not do, again, in part because we also inhabit the space, is we do not charge a monthly rent. at this point in time. There was a very short period of time, and when I say short, it might have been only a year, where the Arts Council did pay a monthly rent, as a typical tenant would. That was also about the same time that Chris and representatives of the council, Arts Council, came to the town council and said, hey, we're looking to put a pretty significant amount of money into an expansion of the kitchen for their events and things. And when I say significant, I don't remember the exact figure, but it was tens of thousands of dollars. The council said, that's great, you're improving our property. Let's go back to the dollar lease that you had for so many years. Again, with the addition going on, right now, the draft lease doesn't contain a monthly amount, but if that's something the council's looking for, we can begin those discussions also. And then the final item, and I think we're both in agreement on this one, and Max provided some updated language as of this morning. But one of the challenges the town has had for some very long time is we have a pretty significant and definitely valuable art collection of things that have been given to the town, bequeathed to the town over the years. The value on that is growing almost annually. It seems as though Wyeths do very well at auction. What we don't have is a proper space to really display those. For a number of years, there was one hanging in the current the current finance office or old library. Fortunately, we saved it from some of the leaking chimneys and things that you've witnessed over the years. So those are all sort of in storage right now. As part of the expansion, I've been talking with Chris for years about the possibility of maybe a small gallery space or something and letting people that handle this stuff regularly actually handle it. So part of the lease would actually create a small gallery space within any new expansion where we could display the town's artwork. It would be in a safe spot and handled by those that handle artwork on a regular basis. And I think that's a very good synergy and makes a lot of sense. If we tell our maintenance crew what those are worth before they go and move them, which sometimes we have to do, but it doesn't terribly excite them to have to carry them around. So I'll leave that at that. So that's kind of my wide synopsis and some of the discussion and direction I'm looking for this afternoon. And whether you want to run with it or if Chris wants to fill in anything I left blank or something else he might have brought today, I'm done speaking for at least a moment.
I think I'd actually like to ask you a couple questions
Okay.
before allowing the Arts Council to be here, but thank you guys for both being here. So my understanding is that with the Boys and Girls Club that they pay all of the maintenance on that building.
I will go back and I don't believe that is the
Not
case.
true?
I think we still have major HVAC, if God forbid something were to go with the roof.
Okay. We do. Is there a number on significant? Okay. That's close enough for me. Okay.
Exact number.
That's fine. And that part of renewing that lease as long as possible was because we shared space, because we actually have consistent and regular use. Our recreation department uses the gymnasium,
That's correct.
has programming during the school year and in the summer. Whereas it looks like, based on the memo you gave us, that we are potentially moving out of the Campbell House.
Well, again, that's a discussion the council will be having in coming months, but as we've talked about, be it upfits of the admin building, the finance building, if a town hall were ever built, one of the departments we would like to find a new home for would be Parks and Recreation. They're on the second floor of that structure.
It's not handicap
I mean, the one
accessible.
advantage is part of Chris's plans are to make it handicap accessible. But again, it's kind of a remote spot.
Like having a second floor is going to be an issue a little bit there.
Yeah, so, and again, within the lease, we're trying to address the possibility that one day we would vacate that space. We would like, my suggestion, and I think Chris's and the council's, Art Council's interest, is that they'd at least have the first right or
Right of
right of
first refusal.
refusal or opportunity to maybe backfill that space and utilize the entire facility as a museum and arts structure. So,
And you said that outside of the water plant, it's probably the most valuable piece of property we
I
have.
believe, at least the last time I looked at the insurance chart or whatever, it has the highest appraised value on it of our structures. It is not the water plant, fortunately, but it is a higher value than the admin building, the finance building, the community development building, et cetera. And you can kind of look at the structure and the grounds, and that probably doesn't come as a giant surprise.
So would it be fair to assume that the insurance on that building and the maintenance costs for that building are also higher than our other properties?
I think that is a fair assumption, yes.
Okay. And can you help me understand, as a person, I understand the value of owning valuable property. It makes sense to me. What is the benefit to the town of owning valuable property?
Let me ask for by valuable property. Are you talking about the home and grounds, or are you talking about the art collection?
No,
Okay.
the grounds, just the home. Yeah. I mean, we do programming in the train house. I know we have after-school programming on the playground, and we have sports and recreation.
Yeah, and
in the
obviously,
fields.
what's talked about in this lease is the house itself.
Yep.
And actually, some of the grounds, and Chris will be able to address that. We've been working with them over the last couple of years, and they've been working with a landscape architect to return the grounds immediately surrounding the house to some of the original. And as part of that, they would like to take over the long-term maintenance and such of that, maintenance of those plantings that they do and different things. So from a general philosophical perspective, it's not dissimilar to what we've talked about with the finance, old library building, the admin building. The argument for those that are interested in historical structures would be the only way to guarantee their continued existence is to leave them with the public entity. So someone could make the argument that because when you sell those, if you put significant enough restrictions on the sale that somebody couldn't ultimately choose to bulldoze it or otherwise make significant changes to it, you're going to significantly limit the value you get in return for the structure.
But if we sign a 99-year lease, there is no value to the town besides the expense of keeping up the property.
Unless, of course, you place the expense of the property in the organization that you've signed the 99-year lease with. Yes.
Okay, that helps.
We spend annually just on the,
Just on the general. I know those are some numbers that Jessica's trying to pull on all of our facilities, so I don't have a number for that today. Like most all of our older structures, though, it isn't going to be the day-to-day that is the significant number. It's inevitably when something goes wrong. And usually that involves some kind of heating, cooling unit or an electrical panel or something of that nature. But the day-to-day, again, they're very good tenants. I'm sure there's probably things they do over there where they don't run back to the lease and say, well, that was more than $100, here's your bill. I'm not asking him to go do that, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's happening. But I hope to have that number as part of some other work we're doing. I don't have a ready number available today.
and just out of curiosity, there's never been a discussion or a desire from the Arts Council to not have a lease and have more ownership in the structure?
There's been those talks
Okay.
since we've inhabited it, but I know with it being a town property, then that's kind of y'all's decision, not ours.
Okay.
What's the current status of the addition? I mean, is it along the road a little bit or still conceptual? Where's that stand?
We've gone past the conceptual design that this entity approved, and we're now having the architects draw up detailed architectural drawings so that we can get quotes, ask for bids.
I guess my initial takeaway from all this, y'all do fantastic work. It's we're talking about value. There's sort of a non-monetary value to what you guys add, which is important. And we're able to do that as a town sometimes, whereas individuals may not be able to. So I think the service and what y'all provide is great. Mac, you can probably get creative. I don't want us to tie our hands to something too long. If the addition doesn't happen, or you get like a couple years down the road and it just kind of falls apart. So if there is some way that we could put some triggers in place, in my opinion, whether it's 10 years guaranteed, and then if the things happen by year 10, it automatically triggers 20 more years, something like that. I would feel a little more comfortable. We've had a lot of conversations about space And while right now the building doesn't seem amenable to some other needs we have, I don't know, it could in 30 years. And if we're not able to say, oh, we'll move you guys here because we really need that space for something else, I would be guessing. And so if the addition doesn't happen and there's not the, definite investment into that space by you guys, I'd hate to tie our hands for potential movements later. Not anyway saying we don't want to be affiliated because it's a fantastic partnership. But I don't know if that makes sense, Mac.
Yes, it makes perfect sense.
Can I make a comment, please?
Yes.
So we've already raised a few $100,000 toward this, and then we had a focus group of very and culturally involved citizens in the town, people that are with foundations and various banks and things. And the longer the lease we get, the more likely it is that it will happen, because that was the one thing that was raised. People like, Mrs. Campbell that had grown up in the house, her, pledging $150,000 was based on the fact that we would try to work something out with the town. So if that, whatever, as long as you can afford us in the lease, it really does help us with the fundraising.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to let the, Mac, when you draft it, I mean, that initial runway for seeing how it develops be, 10 or 15 years. I mean, I'm okay with that. I'm just hesitant without there's some measurable something,
Right.
decade, 2 decades from now, to make it too long without a, hey, does this happen? But that was my only takeaway, Mac.
But you guys are trying to raise money to put $3 million into property you don't own.
Yes, well, we all own it.
Well, yes.
As residents of the
Well,
town.
yeah, as residents of Southern Pines, yes,
Yes.
then we all own it.
Yeah, but it's been our home for 40 years.
I was going to ask that too. You all have been there 40 years?
Yeah, 40
Okay.
years, and we've had a great relationship with the town. We do 75% of our program in Southern Pines. And with this addition, it would more focus more people coming in to Southern Pines, especially at that facility because of what we're doing. And we have plans for it, whether we get the second floor or whether we don't. But right now, the space we have now, we have outgrown. We're sharing offices, and the events and programs that we want to do, we can't do it because the largest room in there is the Brown Gallery is what we call it. It's the oldest room in the house and even in that area, actually. It just can't hold but so many people. It's a little bit smaller than this room.
From a fundraising perspective, I just understand when you're trying to ask people for money, it's a whole lot easier when you own the building.
Yes.
I mean, you have permanence. In 30 years, can I imagine using this building? Not really.
You don't think?
I mean, no. I feel like in 30 years, we're trying to find a space to put a town hall that we can't even project 10 years what we're going to need. I think what you all do is really important to Moore County. But as Chris just said, as long as we can afford to have you there, and the minute it becomes expensive to us, what does that mean for future councils and for you all when they turn around and say, we can't afford to have you anymore? And then where do you go? And what happens to the $3 million that you put into it?
Affording to have us and working with us as a partner, like we've done for many years, we put hundreds of thousands of dollars already into the facility with the kitchen, the porch being enclosed, patio being enclosed. It's now, the first floor is totally ADA accessible, which we want to do more. And we're bound and determined to put even more money in there. But the biggest thing that when we did the focus groups was they understood we didn't own it, but they didn't want us to be risking losing our space after 5 years. And that's the only reason we asked for a long lease. Whether it be 99, 30, 20, that's entirely up to you. But that was the biggest question they had. Why are you doing this if you might not be in there in 5 years?
Yeah. No, I mean, from a lending perspective, if you were going out and asking a bank for money, they're not going to give it to you. Yeah. I mean, you don't have permanence and without a longer lease.
Mayor, you're referring to just the building and the grounds around the building, because I think the parcel includes a lot more than just the building.
Yeah.
You're just,
So the programming we do now, the majority of it is not in the building.
Right.
Or in the
that's right.
gardens right around or surrounding within the gates of the building. What we do is all in the fields and in the park and in the train house.
It's
Yeah.
14-acre park. And we're talking about 2 or 3 acres.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay, I'll stop asking questions if other people have them or if you have a presentation.
Everything that was here was covered. Just see if there's anything, because I don't think we've met. And I know Deborah's new since the last one, but I've told you how much we put in and what we've done. In addition to the building, we are taking responsibility of the maintenance of the landscaping around the building. We're contracted with Glenn Bradley, who's an award-winning architect that the town has actually worked with. He has created a 100-year site management plan, is what he calls it, to where we are going back to 1948 when the Campbell family actually drew up this design. What you see at the Campbell House now, 99% of it was done by the Campbells. The bones are there. We're just bringing it back. So this year alone, we'll have spent $44,000 just on bringing that up, transplanting, planting new things, taking care of the oak trees that are in front and things like that. And we're estimating that's going to be about $20,000 a year afterwards, just the landscaping part. The new addition is 1,600 square feet. It is $3.5 million investment. Half of that's going to be construction, and the other half is going to be an endowment where we know we need to take over some of the responsibility for maintenance and upkeep of the facility. But again, as a partner, it sits in your land. We don't want to do anything in a vacuum. So the endowment's going to help pay for that and the landscaping upkeep. And then in addition to the great room, there will be a ceiling art project, for lack of a better term, that we are getting some amazing artists that have local ties to the area to do a ceiling art project. Plastered ceiling, canvases hanging down that are themed for the area. If you've ever been to the frescoes in Western North Carolina and the churches there's like 4 or 5 there. They attract 50,000 people a year just to these little churches, and they are small churches. We want something like that so that the Campbell House becomes a destination, and then they see what else we do in the facility and on the grounds and in Southern Pines. So the main thing for us is we'd love a longest lease possible. We look at the Campbell House as our home. We love working with the town, so everything in here has been covered, I think.
I would like to see the numbers on what the building cost us in maintenance and repairs before agreeing to a term.
Well, and that might too, Attorney McCarley, you're right behind me, so I'm trying to like talk to you, but not be rude. I guess if there's a way, like in my mind, this thing just can stay status quo. It's a 40-year history, and we'll have that moving forward, and probably then some. It'd be fantastic, but potentially some way that whether it's at term 30 to maybe renegotiate or figure out the maintenance. I guess my biggest fear is that either way, it could go too far to us or too far to you guys. That one side, it doesn't kind of get out of whack, whether it be the maintenance or something like that. So just an ability to sort of keep it sort of status quo as it has been. Anytime I hear long-term lease, I'm like, I always think of the far extreme of the spectrum. Like, 70 years from now, it's just way different than what we thought. So just some ability to not have that happen, Mac. I'll let you do your magic drafting there.
Just a quick question. How long do you guys think it will take to get all of your proposed additions done? I know you said 3.5 mil.
Yeah.
So how long do you think it's going to take you to get it all?
My personal guess is from now until we actually open the door and welcome people into the completed part, I'm hoping for 5 years. That's, again, Ray is the fundraiser. But it's going well right now with everybody we've approached. They have all been positive. Again, I won't know how long it'll take in construction until after we have bids and they kind of give us a schedule of what it would take to build what we're asking them to do what we're asking them to do.
If I might add, if you think about like the Boys and Girls Club, the funding and how that went and the length of time their lease is, that really is what helps secure the funding. And so you see it's such a critical factor, particularly now in our silent phase. People are waiting to hear what we report back to them.
Sure.
Yes.
Ray McCarthy, yes.
Are you anticipating the possibility of taking out a loan for any portion of this?
No.
Fundraising.
We're hoping not to. Well, it just depends on how the fundraising goes. We want to start construction when we've had at least 50% of it raised. And if that means we have to have a loan, again, I don't know that. I can't answer it definitively.
Well, then maybe the issue for the council is, and them too, if they're going to take out a loan, they're probably going to need a 30-year lease from the date the loan starts.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to re-ask one of my questions. So if preservation of the property is the number one benefit, or maybe the only benefit of us holding on to expensive property, for the town to own expensive property, and if you put so many restrictions on the property, you really devalue it so nobody would buy it. If we put all those restrictions on it, it's already what they do. So what is the difference between them owning the property for let's just say it's 99 years of a lease that we get no money versus they own it forever? What is the real difference to the town?
So please let me add the caveat that my reply to your original inquiry was
Okay, sorry if I
not-
changed it. Okay.
Well, it was not intended as making that argument.
Okay,
It's
that's okay.
that is one argument I can hear somebody making for.
It was an
for-
honest question. I
Now-
wasn't,
now that- yeah.
it wasn't like trying to get you in a corner. I really
Because
wanted to know.
that being said, and maybe this is going down a path that is already going through your mind, but as I'm listening to this conversation and then I hear potential loan, and I'm going through in my head whether there is a way, I mean, obviously there's always the subdivision and transfer of property to the Arts Council directly, but maybe in light of the intent of the original gift, and I mean, I'm going way down a path here now, but if there's a way to, I'm going to use a term and it's not going to be the right one, so I wanted to have the conversation with Mac, but if there's a way to almost condominiumize the structure such that the ownership is theirs and it allows them to take a loan against the value. I don't know what the trigger is, but it gets out from any long-term maintenance concerns and things. They get to use it for what they intended to use it for, which I think everybody's perfectly happy with the concept. You're not trying to sell it with the restrictions. Again, I have to believe there is a mechanism out there, but I won't pretend to be the real estate professional that knows exactly what it is. And Chris is over there going, how am I going to come up with the money for this? So I don't know what that all looks like, but it may be getting down the path of,
I think it's just a path I wanted to talk through before
Yeah.
we go and make any agreements.
We recognize Mac, and I have a question of whether or not you've looked at the original gift to the town, and whether or not there are covenants that run with the property.
But I would imagine there are.
But now that it's come up, I will go into the deed.
Thank you. That would be real important.
They exist.
The way we have the authority to do a private sale or private lease to them is that we have to do it to a group that's nonprofit and is accomplishing a public purpose, which in this case is arts and cultural activities. And we have to condition the lease on those things. So it's going to get tied up such that those restrictions are required by law to be in the lease. And if we end up wanting to do this in a different way, I think taking the manager's suggestion of condominiumize, I would suggest that we lease or sell the whole thing to them and get a lease back for the space we're going to use.
Okay. Anna, he did not say put condominiums.
Yeah.
Just to make it really clear.
I was trying to use the technical term, not the,
This meeting's over.
funny you mentioned that though, because there was the room for a visiting artist.
Condo. That was very temporary.
That the part of the bar that I did the worst on was property. So I'm going to yield to you and Mr. Pate. That does not give me a lot of confidence, but Mr. Pate, I think, is up to speed on this. And the longest term, I think I remember we can do, as far as a lease. There's a limit on how long a lease we can do, am I right? Is it 99 years?
Oh, it's 10.
The Boys and Girls Club fought for 99 years, and I think they got it. I think so.
99-year leases.
What are they?
To have a real discussion.
Yeah, I thought theirs was 20.
I think it's 30.
Requires a discussion of the rule against perpetuities.
Right. Right, and so that, I mean, I know that Vail, Colorado is a 99-year lease from the National Park Service. I know that, and I think there's a reasoning behind that as far as the rule of perpetuities go. But I would certainly yield to either of you who would know far more than I know in that regard. And please don't misunderstand by my questions that I am opposed at all to what you guys are doing. But I would like for us to be really cautious as we move forward with a complete understanding and grasp of the fact that in order for you to fundraise for property that you do not own, it's really important that we have that nailed down. And I think everybody's trying to make sure everybody's okay, but I think we've got a pretty significant issue. Let's harken back to the Y gift when we realized we could not build a Y on the property because there were conditions that ran with the land, and let's find out whether we have conditions that run with the land pursuant to the original gift from the Campbells. And if we do, then let's address those and somehow work around them. And I think that it's important. I'm an advocate of the town maintaining ownership, but I'm also an advocate in light of the fact that there may be a loan necessary at some point of embracing the 30-year loan, because I think that gives you what you need as far as fundraising goes, and it also allows us to maintain the ownership. My question to you guys, and I asked this question with an understanding that you have put far more than $100 on maintenance issues into the house. And I value everything that's happened, and I value the property, and I appreciate what you bring, the culture and the art that you bring to this community. I think we're all in agreement that the $100 maintenance ceiling is probably a bit outdated, and I'd be interested in hearing from you so that the town is not called on to put a new stopper in the toilet, which I don't know that you even do that, but I think maybe we want to look at more like $1,000 ceiling in that regard, and I would anticipate that, I don't know whether that works for everybody, but I'd like to throw out that figure, that maintenance up to $1,000 just for general maintenance of the house might be something that was, and I know Reagan had generously said 500, so I'm looking at a 30-year lease in my head, thinking 1,000 is going to be worth about 95 cents in 30 years. So I'd be really interested in hearing from you what you think is fair in your opinion, and thinking 30 years out when, if everything goes well, I'll be almost 100 years old. So, and drooling on my bib. But I would like to leave things in a way that in 30 years, everybody's pretty well taken care of. And I also think that I value the idea of the first right of refusal for the Arts Council if the town were to decide suddenly, oh, hey, we're going to sell that asset. I also really value the questions the mayor's asked about what is the liability that the town carries in order to maintain the property, for example, the cost of the insurance, and what are the upkeep issues that we pay for, and all of that changes the minute the Parks and Rec moves out of the upstairs. Because right now, I think we have a tremendous responsibility to do that. And I think that you're probably going to encompass a responsibility to make the second floor ADA accessible at some point, and that's going to be an expensive undertaking. So just trying to think 30 years down the line and not wanting to cripple a future council. Those are my concerns. But I think that my personal opinion is I think 99 years is too long, but that we put in a right of first refusal to protect you, that I think 30 years is pretty important because of the issue that the attorneys brought up, that I think a maintenance of $100 is asking for trouble if people are not as wonderful and understanding as you two are. And if we get God forbid, we get a new Arts Council president who decides they're going to call us every time the door doesn't close because the building shift. So I think those are my thoughts on it, but I also, the most important thought that I have is, let's look at the original passage of the gift and see what covenants were in with the land, which I'm kicking myself I didn't bring that up originally when you said, hey, we want to do an addition, we're going to pay for it. And I went, oh yeah, this is great. And hopefully it is great, but I don't want you guys in a situation where suddenly we say, oh no, that property can't be used for that. So those are my thoughts. And I think what Mac, what do you need? You need from us just a general consensus in order to move forward, right?
I've been taking notes on the comments you've made, and I think the next most logical step is for their negotiating group, the manager, me, and their attorney to sit down and see if we can come up with something that.
Okay, great. That's great.
I had one thing that sort of go off Councilwoman Peterson's comment. Attorney
We
McCarley,
can be Ann
I'm
tonight.
trying to do it the right way. They tell us we have to be very formal. Okay.
Keep everyone on their toes.
Is there a way to decouple the lease term to the renegotiation of maintenance? Because I'm like, I'm okay with the 30 years, but like.
Let me make a suggestion on that. A couple of things based upon Councilwoman Peterson and however we're doing that this afternoon. One, I want to be clear, while we have property and liability insurance there, clearly because we've got a department there and we own the structure, as tenants, they also carry property and liability insurance and everything, and they take care of their artwork and that value. So I want to be clear and recognize that. Two, if we go down the path of some form of term with renewals, similar to what Bill was talking about, whether
Right.
that's a 10-year term and assuming at the end of 10 years the expansion has occurred, it automatically renews for 10 years. It's very simple if you determine, because I agree with you on what will happen over time to what $100, $500, $1,000 looks like. We can build in automatic increases as those terms renew. It would not be dissimilar to what we do with some of our cell tower rental space for antenna. Those increase by 3-4% annual year-over-year compounding type of thing. So if it's a 10-year lease, you could write into there, it's $1,000 during the first 10 years of the term to increase to, you can use a CPI factor over the 10 years that passed. You can use a number, however you want to approach that, but that's not hard to build into. And that doesn't separate it per se, but it at least makes sure that 30 years down the line, it's still not the same $1,000 or $500 or wherever you start. So.
Well, and how do we then acknowledge and give the Arts Council credit for the fact that they've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars glassing in the screen porch and
that's
refurbishing
been the
patio?
sort of thing and the reason that it's been $1 a year for as
Right.
long as it
And
has been. Yeah.
I'm on board with the $1 a year. I mean, they are excellent stewards of the property, and I don't know that there's any way to make being great stewards of the property a condition of a contract, but Lord knows they've got a 4-decade run of being an extraordinary steward of the property, and that's.
And good co-tenants. There's been any number of recreation staff through the years, and we've never had issues that I'm aware of between
Right.
our staff and
took
Arts
care
Council
of it.
staff. And everybody gets along swimmingly, so.
Right. So I think the goodwill that has preceded us needs to be something we preserve as best we can. And I love the mutual trust and the sort of symbiotic relationship that the council and the council have, if you will. So just to really confuse things. So I'd like to not sabotage that with a bunch of contract language that makes it sort of antagonistic almost. But I trust Mac with his kind heart and his good sense to do that perfectly. But I think what you need from us is just some guidance on where we are, is what you need in order to be able to draft anything. And I'll go ahead and throw down the fact that I'm good with 30-year contract. And anybody who wants to disagree with me, I welcome it, but I think we've got to nail down some things. I'm good with the 30-year contract. I'm good with the $1,000 maintenance ceiling before the town gets called in, that you would raise after a 10-year period. I'm good with right of first refusal.
So I think the right of first refusal was not to sell the space, it was to use the upstairs.
Right, but I also think I think they should have right of first refusal if we ever sell the place. I mean, I
Okay,
think
so that wasn't
Yeah.
discussed before, but
That's,
I think that's
yeah,
fair.
I think if they're going to drop millions of dollars into extending the building that's going to sit on town property, that the Arts Council should have the right of first refusal if the town ever, for any reason, decides to.
Dollars ceiling, like per occurrence or ceiling?
It's per occurrence.
I want to know exactly what the Boys and Girls Club. It is 1,000, okay. I do want to know numbers for maintenance, for insurance, and for what liability this really is to the town.
I agree.
If a tree falls on it, or the roof falls in, or there's a leak and artwork gets ruined, what is our responsibility? Because I love being philanthropic. I love giving money to people. It feels really good, but we have a financial responsibility to our citizens. And you all provide a service that I think is incredible for the county, but we're almost debilitating you all to do that by maintaining ownership and then feeling good about it. And I don't think that puts us in we're not actually being philanthropic by doing it. I mean, we need to be fair to all the organizations we work with, but what is the actual cost and liability we're accepting? And what would be the benefits of us passing that on to somebody who could actually turn that into a fundraising that could better benefit the town?
Their liability, I think, their liability insurance covers the artwork, and I think that those things are covered by your insurance.
Yeah, and then the case of if it's a large enough event, tree falling through the roof, our liability in that instance, beyond what we pay on an annual basis in adding that to our overall property, is going to be the deductible. So
When someone falls down the steps, is that our liability? Is that your liability?
that's one of those, as Mac will tell you, any attorney can sue anybody
look
for
for-
anything, and they'll sue everybody and see what the settlement
They don't look
brings.
at the deepest, they look at all the pockets. So we
Right.
have liability insurance for that.
Explore that opportunity as well.
I agree with you. Yeah,
I think it's worth discussion.
I go back to my original point that I think if there are covenants that run with the gift,
Would you guys be willing to
Go
live?
back.
Yeah.
I know there's
I
been
think there's probably
difficulty in finding
covenants.
a lot of the original records
Yeah.
from that.
but BJ loves this stuff.
I seem to
He's gonna be all over it.
recall.
He's getting excited.
I seem to recall very, very general language around arts and cultural type of stuff, which I'm sure is how y'all got there in the first place, and it made perfect sense.
We
but-
got that from the pilot from many years ago, from
Yeah.
from that. And I
We're all working together for these records.
I
This is
will
good.
ask
Yeah.
if whatever you find,
Yes.
share with us, because if you find very little, we can always go to the Campbell family, Margot.
Yeah.
We have that relationship with her. I can call her right now. And her parents, she was not happy they didn't set up an endowment for the Campbell House. So she gave the first pledge for the endowment versus giving it for construction. So her name is on that house, and she will not give to the Arts Council. She gives because of the Campbell House, because that's in her heart.
Yep.
So whatever you find or don't find, if we need to figure that part out,
Right.
I'm happy to work with Margot and the council on
Okay.
whatever would make everybody happy.
Yeah, let's just do some exploration on the history of the property and revisit.
It's not lost on me, though, the concern about things happening over the years, and ownership by the town creates a situation where it can't get but so destitute, I guess, if something happens with the Arts Council. But I also feel like that can be handled with language in a gift also, like through a reversion clause or something.
Right.
So,
Like it goes back to,
yeah,
that's,
so I feel like there's ways to solve that.
If somebody gives you a gift, they get their money back?
no.
No.
Because
that doesn't work.
If
Now,
you
if
give
they
the
give you a
gift,
gift and you don't do with it what you're supposed to,
Gotcha.
yeah,
You cease.
yeah,
Yes.
we cease to exist. It
Yes.
goes, the property goes back,
Right.
which makes total sense.
I appreciate what you guys are trying to do with the property.
Yeah.
I appreciate the things you already offer there. I love attending your events. And I appreciate that you're working with us on trying to figure out a way to benefit everyone best.
Well, and I would like feedback from the other four of you about whether or not I just threw down the $1,000 in the 30-year lease. How's everybody doing with that? Are you on board, or do you want to debate it? Talk to me.
I just think we need more information at this point.
Yeah, I think we need more. Are you guys okay with us taking our time on
Yeah.
it? Okay.
You're a good landlord, so.
Well, I think the only restriction that you have, the only the only restriction that you're dealing with is it's really hard to move forward with fundraising when you can't tell people what the terms of it are. So I think that there's some urgency to determining what we're doing. I don't think we should take much time. Yeah.
Worth delaying and potentially having ownership in it? Or do you all want to lease sooner?
Lease sooner so we can keep rolling with asking, but we're happy to talk about that.
How long is this going to take, though? The questions we were
Mac,
asking.
Mac was taking notes. He's taking
People are
notes
coming up with
right
answers as
now.
we're sitting here.
From a lease
so-
standpoint, we've already got a pretty good template we're working from, and we've been back and forth. So a lot of these key points, terms and stuff, it's plug and play to a point, but doing this.
We run out of money. What happens if the town of Southern Pines is in financial distress and the building needs a lot of work done to it? And we have to prioritize, and that becomes something that we can't afford. What happens to them when we are trying to do what's right for our citizens 30 or 50 years down the road? I mean, I'm really trying to think through what is really the best thing, and I am personally struggling with why we own a building we don't use and why we're keeping you guys from being able to actually fundraise or borrow money because we want to maintain ownership of it.
I think right now, go ahead.
One possibility would be a lease with an option to purchase. So the lease now would give them the opportunity to do their fundraising, and if you and they decide later they want to buy it, you have the option.
Okay. Can you guys get us the numbers on? Yeah, I've got.
I think to some extent that,
So I plan to have the full analysis to you all at the next work session in July. Okay, thank you.
but the last thing I want to do is restrict the Arts Council, if they're moving forward with the major capital fundraising, by saying, oh, by the way, buy the building too right now. So I don't want to put them in that position where they're trying to raise a few million more dollars to purchase a building. I understand your point, but
I mean, to me, that's a whole nother
I don't-
conversation.
Yeah, I
I'm
don't
not-
want to rush something that's potentially a 30-year commitment for the town.
I see some value in our owning. I mean, dirt's finite, buildings are finite. I'm not prepared at all to even think about selling any of it at this point. So that would be a whole nother thing. Like, I would really want to look at the lease at this point. But the numbers you mentioned, like, will help paint that picture, so.
That does help us with fundraising, not having to worry about buying the building and doing it too. And then just being, if I might add, being from here and, I circulate in culture statewide. I have my entire life. Southern Pines has always been on the map as such a phenomenal and greatly cultured place. And it's partly, to a huge degree, because of what the town has done to invest in culture. And the lion's share of our funding is coming from the citizens. So no matter what we're doing, it is something people care so very deeply about here, and it's because of all of y'all and what you've done. So thank you.
If I may, real quick, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the comprehensive plan does have a couple references to maintaining cultural resources such as the Campbell House and others as enhancements of our sense of place that draw people to Southern Pines. So there is some guidance for maintaining these resources in the comp plan. It's in there.
Maintaining ownership of them or maintaining the resources for the community?
I think that's probably, it doesn't say ownership specifically. It just says maintaining that these resources are important enhancements of the sense of place. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't want anyone confused. I'm not trying to kick you all out and sell your building. I'm trying to figure out a way that you all have the building without us having a blank check tied to it.
To be
Because
more
that blank
philanthropic.
check is the citizens that they don't get to choose if they pay for it or not.
I appreciate all of your dialogue. I'm actually
Yeah.
finding it very interesting, and I appreciate how sensitive you are about
Okay.
it.
Brandon, did you say something?
To be more philanthropic.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, not just look like we're doing the right thing, but really do the right thing. Okay, great. I think we will continue this discussion on to next month or to whenever makes sense.
Yeah.
thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank y'all
Thank you.
so very much.
Thank you very much.
That's mine.
Hold on a question. I'm not gonna be ready. I may not be here for the work session. I'd like to cancel.
Next work session in July.
I know. We'll talk about that. All right. I'm over here whispering that I want to cancel the next work session.
Oh, that's what you're saying?
That's what I was saying, yeah. All right, roundtable. Sure. I have talked to our planning director, and it looks like there's not a whole lot on the upcoming work session for July. There's a chance that I'm out of town. In the future, I would love to only have one meeting in July anyway, and maybe push the business meeting into the work session next year, but since we're too late to do that this year, maybe just not having the work session. He did say that there was one potential issue regarding dedication, is that the right word? Of Carolina Parkway? Acceptance. But it sounds like if everything is wrapped up for that road as expected, is that something we could vote on even before July? And then either giving someone like staff authorization to do it? I don't know.
No, it's done by resolution, so it'd need to be by the town council, but I really wouldn't plan around that. It's a pretty fluid situation schedule-wise, and if it winds up being the first available date for that is the regular meeting in August, that's going to be okay, because there's quite a bit of other stuff still needs to happen. I actually still suspect it's possible it won't be ready by then even, so.
Okay. So even today's meeting, had we not delayed the 2 action items, we had a pretty thin meeting today, so I hate to plan around seeing you guys in July. I love seeing you guys. I'm happy to see you whenever, but I hate to show up if there's nothing on the agenda, because I'll be driving in from out of town if I show up.
I look forward to Mr. Pate guiding us in leadership.
And I've talked to Bill as well about that.
Yeah. So
But I
should
hate
we-
to draw you into leading a meeting that
I think
there's
we'd
nothing
have
to talk
some idea in
about.
the next full meeting, whether or not that was an issue to cancel you're talking about
Work session July.
work session in July, yeah.
I don't know, what's the
23rd,
timing on
the
delaying?
23rd, I think.
Canceling a meeting.
How many days?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, I'll just convince you guys not to show up. Okay, that was all I wanted to bring up for July. I don't think I had anything else for the roundtable. Oh, I do. I would like to see the parking standards change to a maximum instead of a minimum.
Regarding, tell us,
Parking standards for the town. I would like for it to no longer be a minimum parking requirement for buildings, but have a maximum so that we are not encouraging people to have a sea of parking lot and pave entire blocks. I would like for people to know what the maximum is, and we make exceptions if we have to. But ideally, they work within those maximums.
For the record, can you just add that I didn't put you up to this?
No, you didn't. No. I'm looking at you because I'm like, BJ's gonna get mad at me for saying it. I mean, I'm not saying let's vote on it now. Is a round table, I'm expressing my opinion. I think that parking standards need to change.
I'm with that.
too much parking with seats of parking.
I think that,
So I'm confused when you don't want to have a max.
I do want a maximum.
You do want a
I
max?
do. I want to change it from a minimum to a maximum.
Okay.
I think that in the very minimal amount, which is a lot that I've learned about town planning in the last 2.5 years, across the board, parking minimums seem to be not advisable. I mean, a lot of towns are moving to not having them.
At all.
At all. I think Durham changed last year to not having them. We are creating a cost to the businesses, which then is passed on to the citizens. And so we are costing everyone a lot of money, and all it's doing is tearing down trees and putting in pavement, and nobody loves that.
Making it hot.
It's when we talk about character of Southern Pines, it's not the parking. It's just my personal opinion, and I'm throwing it into the round table. There you go. And I'm done. That's it. Y'all can talk about it inside meetings, outside meetings, whatever you want. If
Y'all aren't doing anything for dinner tonight. I tell you, I could talk about this till
part of roundtable is I want to make sure that we have the opportunity to bring things up. No one is prepared for me to say that, staff especially. So I don't expect for you guys to be to have information. I don't expect for my other council members to have an opinion yet. I just want you to know that's where I stand on it.
So we should all come up with an ordinance we want to change.
I will say,
Let's go to dinner.
I mean, there's value in that. I will also add, as you're looking into it, we talked about the whole thing of redoing. The ordinance was character districts that no one part of town is the same as the other. So if we're talking about doing something like that, which I think could be great for the character of some areas, might not fit for others. So do we want to have like varying sets of minimum, maximum, one or the other, both, depending on where it is in town?
That's an idea.
More for your plate. Sorry, BJ. Or playing director grief, sorry.
This is out of BJ's dream book. Yeah.
Topic that's near and dear to our professional hearts and our team, and and we deal with it on a daily basis, hourly basis. So yeah, we have all kinds of different ideas and thoughts on that, and so yeah, no, I'm just jotting down notes. Whatever you guys say about this topic, we'll certainly look into it.
Okay.
It is, the issue of parking is also dealt with in the comprehensive plan, so we could draw out what our plan tells us about parking, and it is to tack towards not over parking everything, because
Yeah.
it just uses up valuable space.
Okay.
Our mayor had suggested in another meeting, I don't know if it was a work session or probably work session, the idea about maybe lowering the cost of the reconnection fees for water in our town. And I had the opportunity of meeting an economist who is a co-teacher in one of my classes. Her name is Laura Ulrich. And I spoke with her during my first week of classes and mentioned to her that I sit on Southern Pines Town Council, which she was amazed to discover. I don't know why. But anyway, I thought about her maybe possibly giving a presentation either to us as a council or to the council and town staff. She gave a presentation to us in class. It was very interesting, dealing with the disparity economically between a Black community and the white community. She gave factual, statistical information. Anybody can say, oh, this is the problem, but when you see numbers and you see years and you see specific data that's connected to it, it changes the whole perspective. So I tried to get in touch with her. Unfortunately, I could not. I should be seeing her tomorrow in class. And I just thought it would be cool just to have her presentation to be made to us, council. Because if we're going to even consider that, I think we should have some real data to go with. Not just, it would be a nice thing to just lower the reconnection cost, Why are we doing this when, we can just leave it the same way it is? So informally, I spoke with our town manager after my disconnection of water about the likelihood of the residents of West Southern Pines to paying the reconnection fee. And he said, okay, can't really say for sure, but it's a chance that that's the case. And I know for a fact, and we all know, that those particular residents are the ones who are the most economically disadvantaged. So if they are paying the most in reconnection fees and they are the most economically disadvantaged, it would give reason for us to consider lowering the reconnection fee. So I'm going to try to see if we can get Ms. Ulrich to come and talk with us. I don't think it's going to be a cost. I think she'd be glad to just come and share her information. She has a pretty good resume, which I do not have, but I know she presently lives in Charlotte, and I believe she works with state revenue, I believe. So don't quote me on that. I'll get the particulars, but
Can I add a comment on that too?
please, yeah.
In addition to reducing the reconnection fee, I would love for the town to work towards, I imagine that going back and reconnecting the water actually gets expensive. I mean, I think that we had, I don't know if it was James Mickle when he was in here, said kind of, it's all hands on board when it's turn off and reconnection day, because it does, it requires a lot of manpower, a lot of driving around. If there is a way that we can put more effort into reducing the cutoffs, like do some upfront, either phone calls from the office or something that we can do, even if we just reduce the cutoffs by a few, we may end up saving the town money because we're not driving all over to reconnect them. And these people are not without water for 24 hours then with an extra bill.
I think that's one of the ideas we threw out last time was hang tags on the doors versus putting something in the mail that gets put on a shelf and nobody looks at it, but having a card
So I
when they
think
come home, they
the
see
hang
it.
tag was a conversation between you and I think the phone call was something that I landed on rather than the hang tag, but the hang tag still requires someone to drive around town and do it.
Yeah,
I mean, there is maybe a better chance that you see it on your door, but if a phone call can reduce it, then you're getting people out of their cars. I mean, I am open to staff coming up with solutions
Yeah.
or ideas.
They only use the hang tag when they've disconnected it.
Yeah.
So it's I mean, like, duh, why do you need it then? You know, I'm gonna go in the house and flush the toilet and then
Yeah.
I'll go flush
The
again.
faucet didn't work, so
Yeah,
yes, I
right.
know.
Manager Parsons said, is we sent out a letter with this all red
Yeah,
or something
yeah,
like
he
that.
sent it to me, and
But
it's very
it's-
clear, but
But it's all.
Yeah, the hang tag, for every house you're going to stop at and turn the key, you're now stopping and hanging a tag and then coming back 2 days later and turning the key. It's
what if we-
doubling the.
Well, maybe.
picks up the phone and works through a list and calls. If you can get it from 100 people getting their water cut off to 50 people,
And that
you've
could be
saved yourself
automated.
50 trips. Yeah, it could be automated.
could be
I mean, I
automated.
think, and I don't know if we have contact numbers even. I feel like this is us throwing ideas out, that you all are better with ideas, so.
So
I'm
the
ready.
goal is to reduce disconnections.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the only goal,
Yep.
right?
I wonder whether or not they have telephone numbers. They go by addresses and names.
Numbers for accounts?
We have contact numbers if they're
They work
up
or
to
not.
date. Like when you come in and sign up initially, you provide a number. Now,
And I,
Well, what if the hang tag?
phones change. It's,
Yeah, if the hang tag says, we'll give you a warning next time, let us, update your phone number with us or something. Again, I'm not trying to give solutions, I'm just trying to throw some ideas out, because
So we,
Communication with the customer that they're not used to, right? So there's, get a bill in the mail and it ends up on the shelf and.
I don't open my bills. I hate bills. They sit on I walk in the door and I set them down, and hopefully they get paid.
Maybe
But,
the envelope,
know-
maybe the envelope should be red.
just one question, Gerald, does any of our communication have like I hate to even use the term robocall availability? Like if a physical town staff can't make those 50 calls, if they just plug in the 50 numbers and if nothing else, they'll get a
We've
recording.
got the code red notification system and stuff, but
It's not to every, it would be.
that would be difficult to use for
Yeah,
this
just like
purpose.
if put the numbers in, you're going to hear a recording. It's not going to be a person, but at least something to where, hey, heads up,
The
Southern Pond.
manpower to drive out and turn off water and then drive back out and turn back on water has got to be higher than
I'm going to ask Mike.
calling some of the people.
I hate doing this.
Well, let's do
I
it.
hate doing this in real time.
Come on,
I hate doing
into the
this in real
microphone.
time, but on
Over
the
here.
code red system, could you go in and use the GIS dots, hit 50 dots, and it would just send one
Come up to Mike. Come up to a mic, Mike.
all out that says, by the way, you haven't paid your bill, you're getting shut off in 48 hours?
We actually
Voice
have,
preferably.
we actually have two
Honestly,
mechanisms of being able to call people that we could do that. Now, I will tell you that it does take some manpower, but they're not driving, they're in an office to do that. And obviously, that would be a monthly thing. My opinion only is we're fairly lenient on when we cut off. We try to do a lot of notification. We do a lot of things. One of the things we've actually reduced some of our cutoffs, and I don't have the percentage on this, when we went to the automated system where you could pay
Sure.
straight out of your bank account. We actually started reducing some of our cutoffs just from doing that because people didn't have to think about it, didn't have to think about paying the bill. That doesn't work for everybody. We understand that. There are a couple of methods we probably could do some type of call for that, but it's still going to require, it's different every month. It's not the same person. So you've got to go through and plug that in, pick the correct house, and then hope you have the right phone number.
Yeah.
The phone number will be a challenge. If there's 100 cutoffs,
That was the number I got last month.
I would bet you 25 of them, we probably don't have a good number because
I'd say
people's
50.
numbers change.
Having taught high school, I'd say 50.
I was being conservative, but probably. Phone, phone numbers.
Incorrect phone numbers
Well,
out of 100.
when they
Easy.
come in to make their payment, because they got to come in to make their payment likely.
That's correct.
Why can't staff just
First.
ask right then, hey, we have a new system set up?
So-
If you just
so
give
we
us an
do- when-
accurate number.
When you come into, we could probably do a spot check, and for the people that are coming in, we reduce the number of people coming in now because we went to this automated system. So, but the people that come in, well, obviously, we could ask them to update and verify their phone number. Anybody that gets a new service, we automatically ask for an updated phone number. So some of it is correct, but some people change phones for whatever reason fairly
But that's not town's fault. If,
No,
you know,
no, we can't do anything
Change your
about
phone
that.
number,
If we-
that's, you know.
If we try to reach out to you, if we try to do something to reach you and you make it impossible for us to reach, or if you don't choose not to open your mail,
Right. But, and then
that happens
people
all.
need to know.
I'm the same way, I don't want to open a bill either.
Yeah, like I know what it is.
People are leery about things, so they really need to know that we're asking for the phone number, and not because we're trying to be nosy and do something else, because folks are scary. We're asking for the phone number because we have a system where maybe we can
Let us
give you an
help you.
alert. Exactly, you
One of the
know.
other things that we could
This cost.
probably do is not look at it from a reactive, but let's look at it proactive and do some additional education. Obviously, get with Gerald, get with the folks in the water billing, and let's do a push through some of our monthly things and some of our posts about paying bills and about water, and maybe we educate the public a little bit better. I don't know that we ever fix this problem but we may reduce it.
But if we can reduce it, I think it's worth a try.
Long range, there are systems eventually that we will have where I know this was on your mind, whereas we'll replace some of our meters and eventually you will be, just like Progress Energy now, you can cut that meter on and off from the office versus going to it. Now, that's,
Instantaneously.
yeah, it's done right then and there. Now, there's some upfront cost to that, pretty significant, but that is in some long-range plans.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Is there a, we could also ask other communities what they've done, if they've tackled this issue. I mean, there's probably not a listserv for the water department. Is there like there is for planning?
I can tell you the communities around us, adjacent to us, are doing the exact same thing we're doing.
Yeah.
Supposed to be better.
We've initiated a lot of the best
We're Southern
practices for a
Pines.
utility of
We're
our
not.
size. And
They've probably copied us.
Good. We learn and improve it, and then they can copy us again.
That sounds good. Thank you, Mike.
So we're still doing roundtable?
Yes, I'm not talking anymore.
For my attire, I've told the mayor early on that, you know what? This 3 o'clock work session meeting is going to be the one when I'm working out in the field. I'm going to go, oh my gosh, I have a meeting. And at 2:57 in Aberdeen, I went, oh my gosh, I have a meeting in 3 minutes. So my apologies for being late.
You fine, Brendan. You fine.
all I have.
We like your boots, bruh. Like your boots, bruh. That's it.
You want to go, Bill?
Oh, sure. The only thing I have is just a shout out to our recreation department. The last 2 weeks, my kids have been at the day camp for Southern Pines Parks and Rec, and they love it, and it is a great program. So kudos to our Parks and Rec staff. And have we hired a director yet, or is it close?
we do have one hired. He will be joining us on July 29th.
Fantastic. Thank you. It's a great update.
So I have 3 bits of good news. The first one is that Taylor, and it's a work session, so she is Taylor. Taylor and Baxter were featured on the PBS It's a Beautiful Day in Pinehurst. That was a program that was produced, obviously, by PBS and that ran prior to the US Open, and they represented us well. The whole piece is about an hour long. I had a friend who was also featured on it, and she kind of kept me apprised to what was going on, and I imagine my surprise and delight when I saw the Clement family there. They looked cute, we looked savvy, we're good, so all good. Number 2, today I went to sign checks at the town office, and I don't know if Tess had said something to people, I don't know what just happened, but I had multiple people come up to me and thank us for the COLA. They had just gotten their raise, and they appreciated us approving the budget, and they appreciated the cost of living increase. So, yay. And number 3, this morning I received 2 phone calls from constituents prior to 10 a.m. And one of them was Michael and Paul. Need to do a shout out to Michael and Paul, who are on the cleanup crew. Environmental Services, thank you very much. It sounded like I was teaching 5th grade or something there for a second. So the Environmental Services crew, and before they could get around the block to my house, one of my neighbors called and said, "Oh my God, what a brilliant job they did." And they just took care of, I'm leaving town and I was worried about that. And I went out, yes, that's right, in the nightgown with the shirt over it to say, "Well done, gents." And they were lovely and working hard, and it was hot, and they had the best attitude, and your stuff's not just getting picked up, it's getting raked. And then I have a video if anybody's interested. So I'm just full of good news tonight. That's it.
All good to hear. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Ditto on that as well, and because my son, I finally did some raking of some leaves. I got a little bit of time these days, and I don't know when they picked it up, but they picked it up so quickly. I was like, "Dag, wait a minute!" It's usually sitting out there for days, and yeah, ditto.
Let me just jump in one more time. Manager Parson, I just wanted to touch base with you also about, I talked with you a few weeks ago about coming up with the trend differences between Article 39, 40, 42, and 44 on the sales tax and what that says. I just wanted to put that back on top of, okay.
All right, very good. If there is no other comments, all right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, guys. We'll see you July 9th. Have a great Independence Day. It is Tuesday the 9th.